Huh, Chris achieved the gift of flight. Good for him.
A modern podcast where Chris and Mike talk about TV, movies, superheroes, and everything in between. It's time for Superhero Slate.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this is a spoiler cast for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
and I notice just a tinge less excitement in your voice as we start this spoiler cast.
Oh, yeah. So I think this is going to be one of those few shows where we disagree, or not disagree, but have different opinions.
Yeah, well,
on what we experienced.
Yeah, well, the history of why we decided to do the spoiler cast is I got to give credit where some credit is deserved. Okay, so when the original, I guess not original, but when the last TMNT movie came out a year, 2 years ago, I think it was, a friend of the show, Quentin Parker, and our friend Javier, or Javi, Jose, he's got a lot of different names in this circle. They all went and saw the movie in theaters, and I was just like, you guys are crazy. That movie looks so stupid. It looks so dumb. It looks weird. I'm sure it's going to be awful. Everybody says it's awful. These reviews are saying bad things. You're wasting your time. And they come out of the theater and they're just like, yeah, that was good. That was actually really funny. Like, they said there was like some good quotable lines in the movie, and I was just like, you guys are crazy, you know. But then eventually the movie came out. Came like video on demand. I don't exactly remember how I ended up watching it, but it was either like a Netflix, a Hulu thing, or maybe it was a Redbox. But anyway, eventually I watched it and I was pleasantly surprised. And I think it's because I went into it with very low expectations, and it was just kind of like a random Saturday afternoon. I believe my wife was out of the house for some reason, so I was just like, this is the perfect time to watch it. And I just had a really, really good time. Since we really hadn't had a chance to talk a lot about the first movie, I thought things were really creative in the first one. I liked the way that the turtles behaved in the movie. They actually acted like teenagers. And the script was actually pretty unique. They did some things that I guess didn't seem so typical and so easy that you'd get in a Nickelodeon movie. So overall, my experience with the first one was good. And then you like to bring it up anytime you had a little bit of news on the sequel in the movie, because you decided to make it my favorite movie. So
that's true. You badgered me enough to where I ended up watching it. And I'm like, well, again, in my way I like to say things, it didn't offend me. So so I was like, all right, I'll watch this.
Yeah, so I wanted to give credit to where credit was due. So I was definitely not the first person at opening night for that first Turtles movie a year or two ago. So, but we did go both on Saturday morning yesterday to see this movie. And I do have to say, I think Saturday morning, like first showing, is my new favorite time to see movies.
Okay, yeah, it's Saturday morning. So I went at 11 my time, and you went at 10 your time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. How was your... I mean, again, spoiler. There are spoilers for Out of the Shadows going forward. Tell me a little about yours, because I imagine, out in L.A., it might be a little different than here in southern Indiana, the Midwest.
In this area, there's plenty of movie theaters to choose from. Basically, just spin in a circle and point and head that direction, you're going to run into a movie theater eventually. But this theater was relatively empty this morning, and I have a feeling it was due to, first of all, it's 10:15 in the morning on a Saturday. I'm sure like maybe Civil War had some people in it, even after it's been a couple weeks out. But yeah, there was only a couple people in there. Actually, the only kids that were in my theater were brought by this dad, and I heard him a couple rows back saying that he actually worked on the movie, but he wasn't in the credits, so I have a feeling he just did maybe some little touch-up stuff here or there. I'm not 100% sure what he did on the movie, but basically he was there like, hey kids, I worked on this movie, let's go and let's watch it. And I think that kind of started my whole experience off pretty well, as just like, yeah, don't forget, this movie is not for you 28-year-old man. This is for kids. So that kind of helped me. But how was your theater going?
So again, my theater, I think it had just opened up. I was at the first screening of the day, so all the theater people were not excited to be there.
Did you feel kind of weird walking into an empty theater with your ticket by yourself for TMNT 2, I felt a little kind of like embarrassed. Like, I hope nobody sees this grown man.
Oh, no. See, that doesn't bother me. Going to theater or movies all the time, even bad ones, doesn't bother me. But my theater was not empty when I got there. It was probably 10% full by the time I got there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And there were a lot of kids. I think the thing that started my showing off maybe a little on the negative side is I was waiting in line to get my drink for the show, because I'm like, I don't care if I go to the bathroom on this one. I'm not gonna miss a whole lot. And the lady in front of me kept asking about different prices on different snacks.
You bitch! It's all expensive. Don't, if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
And so she went through all this stuff, and the guy kept checking and making sure. And then she's like, you know what? I'll just have a small Coke. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this lady ended up having a crying baby for most of the movie.
Man. I feel bad. I wish you were in my showing. I think you would have had more fun next to me.
I might have, maybe. I mean, the kids, I don't mind. The kids didn't bother me enough. But that lady who couldn't keep, like, she was not there to watch the movie. She had other kids, but she wouldn't take the crying baby out. Was like, I'm like, oh. I'm going to throw Twizzlers at you is what I was thinking the whole time. But then I'd already eaten all the Twizzlers, so I didn't have any to throw.
Oh, man.
But other than that, I mean, again, it was a movie for kids. It wasn't a horrible experience. I just, that one lady did two different things, and I'm like, oh, thank God this isn't Civil War. Or I would have some words.
Yeah,
some
so
strong words.
I think that's actually a good way to go into talking about this movie. So I talked on our news featured episodes a couple episodes ago about how when you go into this movie, there's not a whole lot at stake for us. You know, when we go into a Civil War movie, there's a whole lot riding on it. You know, there's so many movies that have happened before it. There's a whole $1 billion worth of movies set afterwards. So there's a lot riding on it. And I don't know if necessarily we ever go into the movie theater with, like, pressure on us, you know, worried about the franchise. But going in the Turtles, I know it's definitely something we were not worried about for sure.
No, we thought it was a week or two after this.
Yeah.
We had no idea when it was really coming out. So we were like, I think it was Thursday or Friday. I'm like, oh, Turtles is this weekend. We gotta figure this out.
Yeah, we're like, where can we cram this into our weekend? Saturday morning, there we go.
Yeah. So not only was it an old Saturday morning cartoon, it's now a Saturday morning movie going experience.
Yeah. But I think since obviously we're on both sides of the fence, as you like to say, how was your side of the fence?
I think this movie, again, is better than the first one. I watched the first one under repeated peer pressure from you on Netflix. I believe it was Netflix. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, this movie wasn't horrible. It could have been a much worse experience by far. And this one, I think, was better. However, anytime that Krang showed up or it worked in the other dimensions, like what could have been a really above average movie sank right back down. There was something that they just did with Krang and that other dimension and the Technodrome that just took me out of everything else they built up. Because everything else kind of felt real and like there are stakes here. I just couldn't, like, for some reason that made me realize I was watching a movie, whereas other parts I'm like, I'm into this. I can get into this. And then again, Krang just totally took me out. I think everything else was really fun, really, really cool to watch. Bebop and Rocksteady stole the show.
Oh, yeah,
I have to admit.
sure.
I didn't think they would be that funny or that cool, but they were just a couple bros like hanging out the whole time.
Yeah, there's literally a point in the movie after they transform, they look into their pants to look at their animal-sized wangs, and obviously I don't think the kids are gonna get this joke, but they're just like, "My man," and I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm loving that. It's so funny.
So the actors, Seamus and Gary Anthony, it was just they totally ran with it. They had a good time. That was awesome. And Casey Jones was kind of a letdown.
Yes, Stephen Amell, as we all know him from Arrow, he's an interesting pill to swallow. And I think if I have to put criticism on this movie, which I'm not really going to, but I just don't. I feel like he is a good actor, but he has just not found the role yet. You know, he's just not found where he is destined to be. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it was just his turn, and this was weird. I wanted maybe a street friendly or a street kind of raised Casey Jones, and not I'm a policeman going vigilante justice on Bebop and Rocksteady kind of Casey. It was weird. Megan Fox, an unnecessary point to this movie as well. She didn't really add a whole lot. The Turtles did most of the work in this one. And I'm going to actually say not having Johnny Knoxville voice Leonardo was an improvement.
See, I honestly didn't even notice. It had been a while since I'd seen the first movie, and the voice actors, I guess they were very effective in both movies, because I don't even really remember.
Yeah, everything stayed the same, and they replaced Leonardo with the guy who actually played him in the motion capture in the first one and the second one. So, this was a much quicker film. I don't know. If I was to rate it, I would definitely rate it a 2 out of 5. Because people are going to ask me, where do I rate it? And I'm going to put it on Rotten Tomatoes. 2 out of 5. Because I think I come at it from, again, in the realm of Turtles, this is better than the first one, okay? Mm-hmm. But in the term of films, I don't think this is a theater-going experience that anyone needs to go see. You got kids, let them watch it at home. If you're interested in Turtles, it kind of fits the cartoon, the goofiness of the 1987 cartoon a little well. And so if you like it, this might be up your alley. But I would still say wait till it's on Redbox or Netflix for me. So, again, Mike, you are definitely way more into this than I was. Lay it on me. Give me your opinion here.
Yeah, so this is what I really enjoy about this specific spoiler cast today, because not often are we kind of differentiating on movies. Usually we have different points of movies, but usually we're on the same page. You know, we both didn't like Batman, Superman. We both like Civil War. You know, but this is kind of cool to kind of go in and have a different type of discussion. And I just had a blast in this movie. I was laughing out loud in the theater. The jokes just really hit me. I love how fun these turtles are. They feel like brothers. They feel like kids that are just trying to learn how to be heroes, and I really appreciated that. And it's just the whole vibe of the movie just really, really works for me. And I think that goes into how I was able to kind of look over some of these things that you weren't able to look over. But also I think that comes into a lot of my love for the Turtles that I had growing up. You know, me and my brother, we watched that classic cartoon show. We played those side-scrolling fighting arcade games. We had all the Ninja Turtles action figures. And, you know, the Ninja Turtles franchise has always been a franchise about cranking out money. Yes, at one point in time, it was a gritty black and white comic book, but then it launched into this huge, mega, very popular franchise that churns out a bunch of money. So you don't have to be too holistic. You don't have to be too precious with the IP, but I really, really like how they really paid homage to these really funny, joking turtles. Like, the turtles, like in the movie, they just play pranks on each other. They're just lighthearted. They're fun. And I just had a really, really great time. And when you make a tone of a movie like this, you can look over just blatantly obvious things, like, you know, any guy that has passed puberty that goes to this movie and sees Megan Fox changing into her sorority schoolgirl uniform at the beginning of the movie is going to be very engaged on the screen. And there's a point in time where she's changing from pants into a skirt, and there's a cut where all of a sudden she doesn't have the pants on anymore, and it's just like people are like asking, well, what happened to her pants? It's just like, well, we don't care. This is just a fun, weird, lighthearted movie, and this part of the movie doesn't really matter when things like that happen. It doesn't really matter how people get these things to happen. Like, Baxter Stockman's motivation is about being like the greatest scientist ever. He wants people to remember him, and that's about as far as it goes. He doesn't have a whole lot of depth to his character, but that's okay. I don't need a whole lot of depth to Tyler Perry in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie to have a good time. And overall, like, the action scenes were really, really good. When they're in the turtle dump truck and they're chasing down a Shredder in the back of that cargo van, that was a really, really fun action scene. There was lots of really cool effects happening, like the nunchucks that basically bust one of those car tricycle things in half, and then in excitement, Michelangelo raises his hands and the arms just fly off. And, like, I love the expressions that they added to the turtles' faces. They were just so hilarious. And the other major action scene that happened in Brazil was really, really fun and unique. I love watching them, like, jump out of the plane and like go through that whole water scene. And that's another awesome scene because Bebop and Rocksteady are included. Like you said, they're one of the best parts of the movie. But I do have to agree that I think the final scene with the Technodrome was a little lackluster. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity there, which what's really what made me enjoy this movie, when they got creative with the type of things that were going on. So and then when they beat the villain, he kind of just goes away. Krang just kind of flies into the void, and they didn't necessarily beat him. They just kind of banished him into the other dimensions. But
he definitely said, "I'll be back to get you, Turtles." And I'm like, oh,
yeah. And those lines in any other movie would make me go, "Oh God, really?" But this is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I don't know if it was rated PG-13 or if it was rated PG or whatever it was, but it was not made for me, but I really enjoyed it. So I think it really helps going into the movie with the right tone. It's not necessarily going to guarantee that you're going to like the movie, but it's definitely going to help. So I know that we try our very, very best not to revisit Batman Superman, but it's just the most recent flawed movie out there that we have seen. When another one comes along, we'll talk about that. We were talking about Fantastic Four before Batman Superman came out, but you're segueing into a great point here. Is I feel a lot of this was the same story of Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. There's a portal opening in the sky, and another dimension's coming through to destroy us. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, there's a good movie in there somewhere. Again, but I think when you mentioned tone, there are two different tones this movie sets. There's the serious, like, we want to be a real movie kind of tone with like the turtles and all like this stuff going on. But then it kind of like it injects like this third, or I guess a secondary tone, where it's too goofy. And I'm like, if they just done that whole entirely over the top goofy the whole time, I would have probably had more fun than I did now, because there are points where like I literally, like, whenever Krang showed up for the first time, because he pulled Shredder out of the middle of the air, and he's like, "Oh, I got some tentacle juice on your face." I'm like, how is this guy, like, where did this guy come from? Like, what happened to this movie? Like, I feel Krang was forced in there. Like, they could have had a whole movie about Baxter Stockman trying to open up a portal, and then Krang could have been the big. I don't know. I think there's you bring up good points. I think these are definitely ways that the movie could have been improved, and I do think that they could have really made this next level for sure. But the way I almost think about it is like there's 3 different type of tones now that or maybe even 4 tones that you can set in like a superhero comic book movie. At the very, very far end, you can get a tone like Batman and Superman that's very, very dark, and you can totally do that. There's nothing wrong with making a dark movie, but when you do make a dark movie, that movie has to be so solid. You have to make every decision in that movie believable and make sense, and the audience knows that the characters are doing that for a very specific reason, and that really pays off. When you can get everybody to believe in that, it works really, really well. Like in The Dark Knight, a very serious movie, everything logically worked out. And then you can kind of step back a little bit. You can go into kind of a middle ground with these Marvel movies that have lightheartedness and jokes, but sometimes very serious themes, and they mesh together well. And then I kind of look at Turtles, where it's just a lot of jokes. Like, I almost think of this movie as partly like an action comedy. There's really funny parts in this movie that I'm laughing. One that really I can think of, this is basically like a straight up gag in the movie, and it was funny. It's when Will Arnett is trying to get that security footage from the clock in Baxter Stockman thing, and it's just this scene where he's pulling this cord from the wall, and you're just like, what is going on? And it circles all the way back around to where he started pulling it, and then we're like, wait a minute. And then he pulls it down, and it's literally this so obvious, this panel right in there with the little hard drive, and it's just like those points just really made me enjoy the movie. It was really lighthearted. I totally get why critics are not responsive to this movie. I wouldn't say they're trashing it, but it's definitely not getting much love. But the audiences seem to be vibing on it pretty good.
Yeah, and that might be because maybe if you go with kids, you might take in, again, a little differently. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe if I'd gone with people, I would have felt different too. I'm not really sure. But, I mean, Will Arnett, speaking of Will Arnett, just kind of go through the characters. Will Arnett felt like he was playing Will Arnett. Like, again, in the first one, he was more, a little more of a secondary character, but like this time he's like playing himself like he plays in every other show. Mm-hmm. Like I'm holier than thou kind of attitude, and I'm like, okay, I can get it. Baxter Stockman was a little, I don't know, he started off strong and then just kind of got creepy. I mean, I would like to see him eventually, like, maybe become sort of the Fly version. Like, I think that transformation would have been a great teaser for the next movie. because they now have the ooze that unlocks your inner animal DNA that we're somehow related to other animals.
Yeah, that's another example of something that I had to go like, nope, this isn't a movie for me. Just look past it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is definitely not a movie for me either. But like, there were some good parts. Like, I love what they did with the camera in this. How they followed the turtles, like again in the river, on the airplanes, on Mikey's like little jet board. Mm-hmm. Like the way the camera moved around the scenes in some of these things, simply because they're purely CGI scenes. Like, there's not real sets on a lot of these. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. I really got to give it to them. And then there are times when I'm like, I don't know, like, this guy, he really likes hockey, so he wears a hockey mask and beats people up with hockey sticks.
Yeah,
the foot soldiers.
One thing that I thought was absolutely ludicrous, but like I was having such a fun time that I didn't care. Like Casey Jones at the end when he's fighting Bebop and Rocksteady, like, okay, he's a hockey guy. His tools of the trade are skates and a hockey stick. So let's have him manufacture skates by taking apart a desk chair with some duct tape. Okay, that's ridiculous. And he happens to find a pipe that's shaped like a hockey stick. At this point in time, if you're going to do all that work, why not? If he's going to just conveniently find all this stuff that looks like hockey gear, why doesn't he just like look inside of a car that maybe has like a hockey bumper sticker on it, and then there's a hockey equipment in the car? That would have made so much more sense. So it's just kind of like, really? But I just laugh at the kind of the ludicrousness of it, where he's like running in between the cars with his pipe and stuff. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is the scene, like the Shredder scene on the highway was really kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even Casey Jones pointed out, he's like, you gave us the most dangerous criminal in the city or the world, and like there was no backup or anything nearby. Yeah, like they just happened to come in on these very fancy motorcycles. Like, this is like the classiest street gang I've ever seen.
Yeah, man, man, it's the Foot Clan. Maybe one day we'll do even better and we can be a Leg Clan. That's another joke that I thought was hilarious, because Bebop and Rocksteady can just do that type of stuff. But yeah, it was really fun, and I kind of liked how they were kind of self-referential, as you said, where Casey Jones was just like, yeah, what do you expect's going to happen? And then he was just like, shotgun shells, why are they in the bag? That's a dumb idea. So I had so much fun with this movie.
Yeah, there are fun parts. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not the worst movie in the world, and I may be coming at as comparing to movies on the whole, compared to you, compared to what you knew this was. And I mean, there are fun parts. The camera's fun. The jokes are fun. The turtles are great. I don't think the turtles had a bad point throughout the movie. It seems kind of be like if a character is not a turtle or a mutated beast, like they're just not as fun. Shredder kind of got the short end of the stick. He wasn't in a whole lot of things.
Yeah, for sure.
And his new mask, which helped him breathe inside the Technodrome, kind of reminded me of a Power Rangers villain. Do you remember Lord Zed?
Yeah, he did kind of look like Zed.
and I was just like, okay. And then he's like, haha, I double-crossed Baxter Stockman. And then Krang's like, well, I'm going to double-cross you. And now you're my trophy. And I'm like, okay. So what?
Yeah, so didn't this movie kind of seemed like, if I went and saw this when I was a kid, I would think this movie was like the best movie ever. It's kind of almost a similar vibe of when I went to go see Pacific Rim. Like, I'm just like, I'm having a good time, but man, I'm only like, can you imagine what the 12-year-old boys in the audience are thinking, or maybe even the 12-year-old girls are thinking? Like, they're probably having a fucking blast right now, because they don't care about these little minutiae and nuances that sometimes that can drag us down. But one thing that I thought was kind of funny, how the movie opens up saying that it was basically produced in association with like Alibaba Pictures and some.
There are like five different companies making this
and
movie.
Some like Chinese thing. I was just like, okay, we get it. This movie only got made because of Chinese money, but I hope that Chinese money comes back around. I want to see a third Turtles movie really, really bad. And one thing that I liked is that they didn't necessarily force all the plot through the movie. Like, I was expecting by the end of the movie the whole city would love the Turtles for saving them, kind of like how they forced in The Amazing Spider-Man, and everybody would love the Turtles and they'd be able to walk around out of the shadows. But no, by the end of the movie, the only people that they were really on board with were just the cops of the city. So I really kind of liked the restraint that they kind of took there, where like we're still giving them room to grow. Just because they saved the city twice now, they are still living underground. I thought that was kind of cool. And I kind of thought that they dealt with the whole kind of, I guess, not racism, but kind of like the bigotry towards these monsters and turtles almost a little bit better than Apocalypse did with the mutants. People seem to be kind of okay with the mutants that had destroyed their planet, So I thought these turtles did a little bit better.
Yeah, there is. So I think the best way just to sum up, like, help me really get in the mentality for this movie is the previews before the movie. Mm-hmm. There was a preview for a movie called Monster Trucks.
I didn't see that.
Okay, so the guy who plays Havoc in the X-Men movies is apparently playing a high school student, okay? Even though he's supposed to be playing MacGyver in that TV show. And he finds this octopus-looking monster in his junkyard that he works at.
Okay.
And the octopus becomes the truck engine and, like, controls the truck.
What?
So it's literally a monster truck.
Oh, God.
They are taking things that we knew as children and just making movies out of them. And then, like, so, like, this truck can, like, jump and, like, spin out and, like, go really fast. And then apparently it's a family of these little creatures / aliens. So there's 3 monster trucks driving down the road. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Okay. Now I know what crowd this is for. Not 12-year-olds, Mike. I think you're shooting the bar really high there. This is under 10-year-olds, and that's all I saw in my theater was under 10-year-olds, I think. And I think they love it. But again, at the same time, I can't say anyone should spend $10 to watch this movie. Multiple sets of $10 to watch this movie with a family. I think you get a pizza and a red box because turtles love pizza, and watch this at home. Rather than go to the theater. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. A lot of towns out there have discount theaters where they'll get movies a little later in their cycle and you can see it cheaper. I think that's a good thing to do. I would still recommend seeing this movie in theaters. I thought some of those action scenes worked really, really well on the big screen. But I don't think this is a movie that you should skip. I think, a lot of the
as long as you've watched the first one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times with these superhero movies, there's a lot of groundwork to do. This Marvel franchise is amazing. We have basically the whole podcast we started because we love talking about the Marvel movies so much, and now hopefully soon we'll be able to talk about how much we love the DC movies, maybe with Suicide Squad coming out. But there's a whole lot riding on it. There's a lot of franchises going. There's a lot of groundwork that you have to do to get caught up. But it's kind of nice having this really easy, digestible comic book movie that you can just kind of pop up on the TV. You don't have to worry too much about what Easter eggs did I miss. Do I need to go out and read a bunch of comic books to catch up? It's just kind of like it's like easy listening music. You can just sit back and chill and just have a good time. You can live tweet it. You can browse Facebook. While you're on the couch. I don't think this is a skip. I think anybody that has an adverse reaction to this movie that's just disgusted just doesn't really understand historically what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are. They have pretty much always been a franchise for kids to make money, excluding its origin from the comic books. But just don't take it too seriously. And I'm giving this thumbs up, a recommendation. If I had to give it an out of 5, I think I'd give it like a 3.5. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to sit down and talk about the Turtles.
Yeah. So a couple things I just want to point out here that kept getting on my nerves. Krang got on my nerves so much. But in the trailer, we saw him, and there's an image, a poster with the pink hair and like the visor. Or the pink head, like the skin human face and the visor. That never showed up.
Yeah, they definitely changed the look of Krang's robot a little bit, and I noticed that when I was going back and looking at images. So I wonder what the reason for that was. Maybe when
make he look too human.
Yeah, or maybe when he comes back in a future movie, maybe they want to give him room to grow or something.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. So that was one thing. I'm like, okay, Krang, like, whatever. You don't look like him. And then the other thing I think I was gonna point out, I can't even think of. There's so many. Just Casey Jones was a letdown. I think the two characters I thought that would be cool to add were kind of mediocre. But again, the Brazil scenes were fun. The big chase scenes are always fun in these. I think that's what we want to point out. And the turtles going into their shells several times.
Yeah.
And so I guess at the end, we didn't see this, so if anyone else has any links to this, I'm going to keep looking. Easter eggs on the Technodrome when Shredder becomes a frozen trophy.
Yeah, I was trying to track down what I had saw, and I believe someone said that the Triceratops was in there, and there was like one or two other things, but I was looking, like, because I feel like now that we've seen so many of these movies, we're always on the look for Easter eggs. So whenever there's a big wide shot showing lots of characters, I'm always just like, okay, I'm gonna like cross my eyes so I'm not looking at Shredder and I'm looking at everything else around him, and whatever it was there, it was only there for a couple frames.
Yeah, it was very, very hard to see. So this is like one of those you need the movie, like the DVD version to watch. So. Yeah, so I mean, I guess on the whole, like, I'm not gonna. I'd say get it at home. Mike says get in the theater, but I don't know. I don't know what else to add to the end of this. It was Turtles. I didn't know what to expect. Like what I don't know what I was expecting to find from this. Nothing life changing, but definitely we'll probably see a third one.
Yeah, I hope so. I want to see that third one.
All right. Well, if people want to know more about your, I guess, growing up with the Ninja Turtles, Mike, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want other recommendations for movies that maybe are not quite worth the movie theater, but maybe worth a Redbox, I'm sure you got some recommendations. Where can they ask you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Valdan, Valdan, or read my stuff on Comic UI. I'll probably review this on Comic UI, actually. If I pay $10 for a movie, I'm going to probably write a review on it. But in the meantime, if people want to know more about maybe our regular episodes, our non-spoiler cast, maybe old spoiler cast, where can they find that at?
Well, they can find all of that at superheroslate.com. That is the best place to locate all of these little nuggets of joy that we put out in the world. And you can subscribe to all of those things at the following. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can subscribe and get us right in your email inbox. And you can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you're a fan of the show, if you like what we're doing, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. It helps us with their rankings over there. And if you're a fan of the show, if you're a super fan, we have a couple of them out there and we love you guys. Just share the show with a friend. Spread the love of Superhero Slate. And as always, we'll be here every single week.
Yes. So, if you're interested in our other shows, go listen to them and let us know. Write us your review of TMNT Out of the Shadows if you saw it, and let us know what you thought as well. So, we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.